Hello and welcome to the Awesome 180 channel. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and today with me we have a dear friend of mine who's a wellness and mindfulness coach. She's been studying philosophy for years now, and every time we meet we have fascinating discussions. So one of these discussions sparked off an idea, and I said that, you know what we have to do? We have to make a video on this. And that is why I want to introduce you to Sandhya Krishnan. And I'm so excited about this because the topic we're going to discuss today is straight from happiness to tidying up to all sorts of things. So super. Welcome to the Awesome 180 channel, Sandhya.
Thank you, Ashton. Lovely to be here. And I so love your background. Let me just say, I'm so envious of that. You couldn't make that up if you tried.
No. And yours looks like perfect and prim and proper. I was envious of yours. I was like, you know what? I need a background like that.
My little bit of the outdoors around me, but you do have the great outdoors. So can you imagine how I'm feeling?
And with all the mosquitoes. So if you catch me doing this, that's what you know I'm after the mosquitoes.
Right. Okay, fine. So everything does balance out eventually, I guess.
Completely.
We keep putting out content like this on this channel, so please don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell icon so you know when future videos come out.
So Sandhya, before starting into it, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? I'm sure everybody's very keen to know.
Okay, thanks, Ashton. I work as a mindfulness and wellness coach, as you mentioned. I like working with young professionals. For me, it's really satisfying, very, very fulfilling when I see people come with like a conflict that they're facing, or when they realize that there's something that's limiting their beliefs and preventing them from being truly the best version or the most powerful that they can be. And as a coach, I'm not bringing any of my knowledge in. I'm not bringing any of my advice in. It's truly the person's process. So it is so powerful because I'm humbled because I could never even imagine the outcome that, that a person achieves if they had come to me and I had to like wager a guess. So I don't even try anymore. But outstanding, it's literally like if somebody was there to kind of pick your brains and question what's going on there, curious, open up nooks and crannies and challenge a few ideas, you will just blaze forth. So yes, I'm very blessed in being able to do what I do. And I also share some of the ideas and experiences on YouTube and on social media, just so that it can spark thinking even outside of a one-on-one coaching session. Yeah, and here I am today.
Because that's the best way, right? If you're alone, you're just one person. As soon as you have a coach, you suddenly become a team. Right? You have two minds thinking. You have two kinds of experiences coming together. And hence, no two people will have the same coaching experience because it's that person's experience plus the coach's.
Yes, it's kind of saying that, we're kind of blinkered in some way or the other. That is the nature of socialization. We do take certain things for granted. We do accept certain things as truths. That's how we're all raised. And we need that to sort of stay safe, to sort of, just have to take fewer decisions on a daily basis. But when you have somebody else who's also looking with no investment in the outcome, but is just curious about you and your life, it's wonderful because it's very different from a parent that's kind of like nudging you in the direction that he or she wants you to go in. This is truly just asking you, what do you really want, right? So extremely.
That's so true. We normally try and make our friends a coach or a parents a coach. It's not the same thing because their ideas and their way of approaching it is very different. And a coach's way of approaching it is completely different.
For sure. I go to a coach whenever I need to clarify some thinking in my head. And,
Correct.
I'm aware that I'm operating from some sort of fear or limitation. I would use a professional,
Absolutely. And that's the best thing, like when a restaurant says the owner eats here,
yeah.
It shows you the proof of this, right? If a coach has a coach, it just shows you the proof of coaching.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's also a truth that you can't solve a problem with the same brain that caused it, which is why I cannot coach myself.
And we cause all our problems. It's so true.
100%. 100%. It is the law.
Lovely. Okay, so today's topic was fascinating. How did you start exploring it and thinking about it? And let the listeners know what we're talking about.
Okay. Today we're talking about minimalism, but not in a Marie Kondo sort of way, although it could be that if you so choose. But I have been fascinated by this idea for a long time, because not just because I come from a long line of hoarders. My grandmother was the kind of person who saved milk packets and tins, and my God, when she passed away and I had to clear out her larder, and it was excruciating, because it also tells a story of the things that we value, or really how much value they have once we're gone, right? All of this was junk for all practical purposes. I literally had to burn it or trash it.
Correct.
And similarly with my parents' home, when I had to go there to sell it off, again I realized that like many Indians, we were holding on to light bulbs, old magazines, old Reader's Digests. I mean, yes, there is some nostalgic value, but it's really also the things that we hold on to. And I realized that I was turning out to be no different. I think my first aha moment happened when I was on a flight and the pilot was beside me. But no, this wasn't the one who was actually flying the flight.
I was just going to ask that, like, what were you doing with the person next to the pilot?
There was a pilot, I should clarify, beside me. I think he was deadheading it or whatever they call it. And he talked to me about, I was just telling him a story about how accidentally my partner threw away a suitcase full of every single certificate that I'd ever won, right?
Oh, wow.
All of my, and I was in school, one of those nerds. So, you a lot of your identity, a lot of your worth, your self-worth comes from those little bits of paper. Correct. Or those little,
You work hard at them.
Cups. Well, so and this is where I'll come to the distinction, right? So okay. He said, listen, you're holding on to all of these memories. And he said, holding on to that is actually preventing you from staying open to what's going on around you now. And he's saying you're defining yourself by something that happened so long ago. And, he was talking about, it's like letting in. So he said the basic concept of Reiki, of, letting in fresh energies and stuff like that. But I was thinking of it more from a perspective of science, but also philosophy. There's a beautiful quote by I think it's Lao Tse, and excuse me if I get this wrong. It says, we loiter in winter when it is already spring. So it's a lovely idea. One foot of ours is always stuck in the past, in our memories. We're holding on to all of these things, and we simply cannot enjoy what's in front of us now, and what could be coming, and looking forward to what could be coming next, because of these sort of, it's what I would call identification. Correct. Which is the concept in philosophy, right? We identify with so many things which are ephemeral, which are passing, which are non-permanent. And this identification is the singular cause of all of our sorrows. Like we mentioned earlier, our brain is the cause of all of our sorrows. It's Correct. This identification. And, philosophically, and several philosophies talk about this in different ways, in different languages. I'll use a very secular way of describing this. But even something like our body, our mind, our intellect, our notions of spirituality, all of these are, if you see them merely as identifications, merely as shells over what is the essence of us, because all of these are changing. If you think about it, not a single cell we have in our body today was a cell that we had when we were born, right? Different cells die at different paces, but there's not a single one that remains today.
Right.
Our thoughts are so different. When you dream, you enter a completely different world. You're a different person. You may be Superwoman, you may be Caucasian, and yet in all of this, there is this underlying feeling of, this is me, this is I. So if you think about it and you sort of just retreat and contemplate a little bit, it's nice to think about, what is this I that has somehow remained unchanged from the minute I was born, when everything else around me has changed, including this body, including these thoughts. Of course, and when I say intellect, I really mean our choice-making ability. So our discretion, in Hinduism, it's your third eye, your, but it's really the ability to discriminate, and we get better with this as we practice it, as we contemplate, as we develop a goal. But this identification, and then of course, I mean, the biggest sort of the easier identifications are with all of our material goods, with all of our relationships, my children, my car, my house, my job, my reputation. Each of these identifications we believe is us. I am this mother. I am this coach. I am the owner of this fine mug, you know. And the thing is, it is how the world lives. But the problem then is that when you want to own something, when you want to possess something, what happens next is that first there's a craving. And you're like, oh, I like Ashdin's mug better than mine. I want his mug. I don't like my mug anymore. Okay.
Correct.
So there's craving. And so I'm going to go find the same kind of mug that you get, make it mine. Now I want to protect my mug because it's my precious mug. I mean, this may be a very bad example, but you know, I don't want my mug to chip. My son has dropped my mug and it's broken, and then it becomes anger. How could you break my mug? I wanted that mug so badly. This was my mug. Who asked you to touch it? Turns into anger. Next, I speak to your dad maybe, and your dad is a way cooler mug because your dad is very cool.
That's where I get it from.
What was that?
I said, that's where I get it from. I got it from my papa.
You got it from your papa. But who's your daddy? The point being that his mug is now cooler. And suddenly I'm envious. I'm jealous, just like I was of your background. Well, your background better than my background. So it comes from the identification. My background, your background. We start comparing as well. Now we assume that these are realities. And then of course, the ultimate, which is when we finally lose the mug, right? Now the mug is shattered, and this is true of our relationships as well. This is true of death, loss, breakups. When we lose that, when we lose our reputation, if we lose a job, we feel a deep sense of, it's almost like we're breaking because that has become us.
Yes.
Now, what happens with all of this is that we assume this is our reality, right? But again, I'll take you back to the dream example. When you were dreaming, you were in that whole different world, right? I'm often superwoman when I'm dreaming, and you know, I think I just love that bustier, and I don't know what it is, but
and the halo of what is the loop of truth? What is that thing? The lasso.
The lasso.
Lasso of truth. Nice.
I suck with my hand-to-eye coordination, so it's definitely the bustier for me. But what happens is that when I wake up, I suddenly realize that, oh my God, that wasn't me. That was just a dream that passed, and here I am. Similarly, and this is a hypothesis that you can build up and test out for yourself. Could there be a time in which you wake up and you realize, my God, here I am, and all of this is just a dream. All of this is just an illusion. It is the basis of the concept of Maya that many of us Indians have been exposed to, that the entire world, the entire universe is just an illusion. But for our everyday living, this is useful because if we retreat or if we look for that permanence of I, then there is a lot less identification. Is my body going to age? 100% yes. Despite every cosmetic surgeon or anything that I might, am I going to die? 100% yes. Am I going to end up losing each one of the relationships in my life in one way or the other? 100% yes. Will I lose this status that I have in society? 100% yes. You know, we know all of these, and yet we cling to them because somewhere we want to feel like there is something in us that is eternal, unchanging, undamageable, or you know, and that's why we want like buildings named after us. We want a park bench with our name on it. We want children who will carry our legacy forward. All of this comes from our desire to feel that, oh my God, let something continue beyond me. Let me be seen. But if we think about what it is that's really us that needs to be seen, and indeed, do we have to go looking for it? You know, in Buddhism, there's a lovely line that you are the Buddha. You know, you don't have to go looking for the Buddha.
Correct.
And there's a lovely book called "If You See the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him," because that's not the Buddha. You are the Buddha, right?
Nice.
And similarly, in Hinduism, this description of the soul, which is part of like a universal, it's just part of the substratum of the universe, really. It's not energy, it's not it doesn't have any qualities. But if you think about it that way, again, for hypothesis, now, if you're a scientific person like I am, it's not your job to accept any of this as a reality, or accept this as, oh, this guru said it.
At just face value, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just for you to say, you know what, I'm going to build this hypothesis, and I'm going to see, is there a place is there a me that is beyond this body? Is there a me that's beyond these thoughts? Is there a me that's beyond this ego? And that search then becomes your lifelong search, which in turn, and I'll come back and deviate from the topic.
And it's interesting,
yeah, go
because
ahead.
you get to the point of saying that, is there a me? Right? So you evolve it to that point where you're saying, is there a me? Like, why should I be even thinking that there is a me? And that is, I think, when the ultimate non-change takes place. So I'll tell you an interesting thing that was happening today. So actually, just this morning, I was writing a podcast on suffering and why is it essential. Okay, so why is suffering essential? And I absolutely love this idea, because if taken from Buddhism, suffering is obviously one of the main ideas behind it. And we're talking about the 8 different kinds of suffering. And you realize that most of those 8 are about change. So there is birth, there's death, there's illness, right? So those are all technically about change. Then there is circumstances out of your control, again, change. There is losing something, which is again change. Desiring something, which is again a form of change. And finally, there's the one that is general dissatisfaction with life and frustrated. So those we'll leave aside for the time being. But most of the suffering comes out of change. And unless you can make peace with change, it becomes so hard for you to do anything. And once suffering takes place, you can then start creating compassion as a form of exchange with people. And once you make peace with change, then you're not worried about losing something or getting something, because it's all avan javan.
Yes.
Aega jayega.
There's a beautiful quote, and I think this is from an obscure book, but one of my philosophy teachers had obviously unearthed it, which said that all the world's sorrow can be brought down to the question, why is the lily not an oak? It's so even to your general dissatisfaction, it essentially boils down to, we want things to be a particular way, but they simply cannot. And an inevitable truth of the world is that it is in motion. The earth is rotating, it is revolving, and everything is cyclical. Atoms, everything in the cosmos, you see, will give birth, will grow, will expand, will explode, and then it starts all over again.
Yes, everything is cycle.
What we seek to do in our lives is we seek to sort of hold back time. We want our children to remain cute like babies, exactly they were when they were born. We want our spouse of 20 years to be exactly that romantic hero that he was when we were in college. Good luck with that, by the way. But it's that, right? We want things, now that we've got this level of wealth or social status, we want it to stay exactly that. It's only allowed to go more, never less. Even a company, if you see, has got a cycle to it, right? It will grow, it will go beyond a point where it starts to become brittle, and then it will start to deteriorate and crack, or it will immediately reinvent itself as something else.
Correct.
And that's sprouting new life. So it's this fallacy, or this futility of gathering things around us and then trying to hoard it all, is really the fallacy of how many of us live our lives. And is it any wonder then that we have all of these 8 sufferings and then some? It's because of this holding on. But the one thing I did want to say, and this is where I'll deviate from Marie Kondo, is that a lot of people are not excited by this idea, because we feel then that, oh, that means you're trying to say that I shouldn't develop any kind of relationships. You're saying that I shouldn't want anything out of life. I shouldn't want goals. I shouldn't have nice things. And it doesn't help that a lot of our spiritual teachers or gurus hang around in white robes or and have absolutely nothing around them, and eat very seemingly boring food or whatever it is, and then worse, retreat to the Himalayas. And this is the sort of picture that we have of asceticism and minimalism. But that is just one part of it. They may choose to take on certain, like, I'll tell you something. One of my teachers, she says, I wear the same thing every day because it's just one less decision I have to make in a day. She's like, I have like 6 of these white saris. I'm just going to wear them because then I can focus, because they want to focus, right? She's so focused on what she wants to do right now. But we're not there yet. We're still full of desires. The other big fallacy is to think that by denying yourself of a desire or by trying to suppress it, we can make it go away. It's like a spring that you're going to try and press down and push down or like push away. The more you do that, it's just going to spring back that much harder. And popularly known as the midlife crisis, or in other cases, a breakdown, or, this is what causes us to sometimes just walk out on our existing life because we've been denying ourselves for so long. I think that the step is really understanding. It's not about denying, and it's not about not enjoying worldly pleasures either. We need to accept that we are human beings, and therefore, by definition, we are, born with desires, and we are always craving things. We come out of the womb craving, motherly love. But here's the thing, right? What we truly crave, what we actually crave, are just very, very few things. We really want unconditional positive regard. We really want for just initially our parents, but really we just want for somebody to see us and say, you know what, you're fine exactly who you are, go play, have fun, and see what use your desires to express your desires in a way that brings you deeper and deeper and more lasting joy. Somewhere, and even the best of parents will not get this mix right. And we somewhere learned that, oh, I need to be this good girl, or I need to be this rebellious child in order for me to be seen, for me to get this. If I don't get unconditional positive regard, let me at least get negative regard. At least it's attention. At least I'm getting attention. Or if I'm a good girl, only then people will like me, right? So what then tends to happen is, now this is not what we really want. And because it's not what we really want, we develop coping mechanisms. And that's where we develop certain tendencies, right? I want to accumulate things because these things are giving me joy. My cup is giving me joy when I bought it. It gave me joy then. Now when I look at it, I feel absolutely nothing for it because the joy quotient was so ephemeral that now I want Ashdin's cup. I want more. Why is that? It's because it was never what we wanted in the first place. And therefore, with everything, right? I mean, it's like an alcoholic or a drug addict. We develop a threshold high that goes higher and higher. You need higher and higher levels of the same stimulation, of the same desires being fulfilled in order for you to get that same level of joy.
Correct.
And it's never ending. That's the other problem with something that's a substitute or a coping mechanism. It can't give you no satisfaction. You will always constant craving, as K.D. Lang sang, one of my favorite songs. We believe that is the essence of our nature, and so we want to accumulate. But if we retreat again, and if we get comfortable with who we are, and we say, you know what, I don't need the affection, or I don't need the attention, or I don't need the positive regard of somebody else to tell me that I'm okay, and that I'm perfect just the way I am. I am loved and I'm lovable just the way I am. Then how do you transact in this world? We know that we need to go through this world. We need to transact. We need to have a goal. And in all of that, you can enjoy the pleasures that life brings, but you can do it without identification, without craving, without attachment. So this mug, in fact, was a gift from one of my vendors when I ran a store. And it was lovely. It brought me so much joy because it was somebody who I really appreciated and respected giving me as a gift. So that gave it a deeper level. And that memory of it that I've associated with it gives me that joy. In fact, this mug gives me a joy every time I use it because I'm associating all of these things with it. But tomorrow, if somebody borrows it, if my son chips it or breaks it, I should have no sorrow for that because I'm not seeing this as my mug. It was a gift that came into my life. I'm so privileged to be able to enjoy it. And Will it go one day? Yes, I'm quite aware that it will. Now, I'm deliberately simplifying this because this is an easy one to talk about. I invite you to think about the same thing for the things that we feel a lot more attached towards or identification towards, right?
Relationships, for example, as well. You know, not just thinking about material things, but relationships, your business, your ideas that you could have started, passion projects. And
in fact, yeah, absolutely right. So this actually goes in degrees. The least amount of attachment that we actually have in terms of strength is to material objects, right? Even like the most precious of diamond will unlikely compare with the love for your mother, your child, your lover, because this is of a deeper quality. One even deeper in nature or in strength, because it's more rare, is your attachment to your own ideas, is your attachment to your intellect, because it's harder to experience, and it's but the joy quotient that it will give you, you know, imagine when you have good passion project and you're able to give very little in terms of material goods can compare in that moment with the joy that you have.
Correct.
Right? There's an equation from Hinduism, because of course we Hindus love math, and say it with me, we invented the zero.
I was going to say that.
but there's an equation, and this I found quite useful, is that your happiness is the ratio of the number of desires you have fulfilled to the total number of desires that you have. Okay, so assume that I have 1,000 desires, and so far I've fulfilled 500 of them. My happiness quotient is half, 0.5. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm not bad, but you know, there's still aage bahut jana hai. I have so much to achieve. Only then I will be fully happy. Only then I will be fully happy. And how often have we said that, right? I will be happy when this happens. And when does that happen? When do we reach one? Is when the number of desires that are fulfilled equals the number of desires that we have. So in that moment of happiness, it's that moment where we have no more desires left to fulfill. All of our desires are fulfilled. In that moment, we are happy.
Lovely.
But I'm going to say that there's one step beyond that. What if you start reducing the denominator? What if you start reducing the total number of desires you have? Suddenly, your numerator is going to go higher and higher. Your ratio is going to change completely, right? And what if that denominator becomes zero? Any number, 100, any number that you can think of, with the denominator zero is infinity.
Correct.
Your happiness, when your desires reach zero, your happiness is infinite.
Beautiful.
You will still transact in the world. You will still contact the world. You will still enjoy everything that the world has to offer. But your happiness will always be infinite, because you are not coming from a place of craving.
Beautiful. And you know, people are listening to this saying that, okay, wow, so superb as a math exercise. Now, how do I get my desires down? I desire everything. I want everything. I remember I had a client once, and we were thinking, and I make them write a 5-year plan. I was like, 5 years from now, what if I give you a magic wand, what would your life look like? And she said, I want everything. And I was like, oh my God, you're going to be so sad, right? So, you know, like when you start, how do you start whittling out your desires?
Sure. Again, it's not about reducing your desires. Like I said, right, it's like a pyramid. The desire for material objects is the maximum, and that's where a lot of us are. More ephemeral, but fewer are our desire for emotions, even fewer for intellectual cravings, even fewer for any kind of spiritual craving. Right? So while there's no point in me, like I'm like a child playing with my Nintendo. Okay. Tell me, Sandhya, please put your Nintendo away. Don't be craving your Nintendo so much. I have 2 teenage kids. Let me just tell you, it doesn't work, my friend. Okay. No, it is not. I'm going to want my Nintendo more than ever. However, when this same child, when this same Sandhya suddenly falls in love, and now I'm thinking about my boyfriend, you know, he's filling my thoughts. It's so lovely. Suddenly I see that this is giving me so much more joy. And you know what happened in all of this? I haven't touched my Nintendo in a month and I didn't even miss it.
Correct.
So if we're able to see these equations, we start then, it's like a ladder. Okay, it's not about sawing off the lowest leg. It's simply about grasping on to higher and higher desires. You say that, okay, you know what? I want all of these things. I want the shoes. I want this, whatever it may be. But you say, you know what? Today I'm going to choose. I'm going to make a choice. I also want friendship. Let me pick the path that's going to be a little bit more ephemeral, right? Let me invest 1 hour in calling a friend rather than browsing a website for shoes. And it's a choice I'm making, which is going to take me in the direction of the more subtle, the less ephemeral, and therefore the greater joy quotient. And life is a choice at every single second. Okay, so that 1 hour that I've spent with you, for example, is 1 hour that I'm not browsing shopping websites.
Correct.
Okay, and then tomorrow I'll say, okay, my friends are calling me out for a drink, versus there's this really nice book that I've found which explores some very interesting ideas that I've kind of been curious about. Now, unless you were curious about it to start with, unlikely you'll even have seen the book, right? So don't beat yourself up. Know that we have all of these in us. We have emotional cravings, we have intellectual cravings. All of us in some form or the other have a spiritual craving. And by spiritual craving, I don't mean necessarily God or religion or even a higher power or a wider energy. It's really just the union with the self.
Yes.
Okay, so one way or the other, we want to get to know ourselves better, come back to ourselves and find a deeper source of our joy.
Correct. Even an acts of service, doing something at an NGO, all of that could be spiritual.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you're taking attention away from your gross self, your petty self, your material self, into a realm that's so much closer, right? And source of so much deeper joy. That's going to give you joy for days to follow. So today I will say, okay, I'm not going to go out drinking with my friends, not that we can during lockdown, but I will say instead, let me make that, okay, I'll say, okay, I'm not going to binge watch Netflix for 3 hours. Instead, let me pick the book.
Correct.
And I'm just going to compare. And this is, if you cannot compare and if you cannot be convinced of this yourself, you're never going to follow it. And no guru or teacher is going to tell you. You need to figure these out for yourself. You need to actually test these out for yourself. And that's a challenge. That's an invitation, right? It will be harder to start with because these are such instantaneous sources of pleasure.
Correct.
You know, munching through a bag of chips, binge watching Netflix, these are all instant pleasure. But once you've done it for a bit, you realize that pleasure is very, very short-lived, and in fact turns into pain after a while, right? That's when you're going to get unfit, you're going to become a couch potato. I think most of us are in that point where we're intelligent enough to realize that. We may sometimes hesitate to take that painful first step. And that's where it's helpful to have like a teacher or a guide or a coach or an accountability partner of some sort, you know, however you choose to do it. Now you've taken that step and said, okay, I'm going to spend time with this book. Suddenly your mind is latching on to these ideas, and trust me, each of these levels, as you get more and more esoteric or less material, becomes far more addictive. Yes. In fact, in Hindu philosophy, we say that the worst addiction, the most powerful and the hardest addiction to break is the spiritual addiction. And you see a lot of people stuck right there.
Yes.
Like they're all, I mean, you know, they become evangelical, they become euphoric.
They've given up their life, inverted commas,
yes,
to this. It's just like a drunk would have given his life up to alcohol. It's almost the same way.
Yeah, it's so heady because it's giving you so much joy, so much peace. And in turn, the other levels sort of get sorted out as well. Suddenly you're attracting so many people. Suddenly people are giving you gifts and, you know, whatever. And yes. I met a Swamiji once who had an Apple Watch, and he was like, you know, follower just gave it to me. So
yeah,
I just,
what do I do?
Yeah. So things that you may have craved even in those realms somehow, but again, you're enjoying them without attachment. But it is still an addiction, right? Because you still haven't reached the self. You still haven't found, even this will pass, and this is not something you can carry with you once your body and your mind dies. So but for most of us where we are right now, it's really about making those choices, and you can look back fondly and say, oh, yes, I did do that, and look where I am now. Now I enjoy this so much more. And it doesn't necessarily have to come with age. I'm thrilled in the work that I do that a lot of people who are so young who come to me, they're already asking these questions, and it really begins with asking,
Correct.
wait, is this is how I see the world around me. This is how everybody says, okay, you should have a Mercedes by the time you're X age, or this much in the bank by the time. Just stop and ask yourself, you know what, really, is that it? Is that what's going to give me happy? Is it going to make me happy? How long is it going to make me happy for? Ask yourself these two questions.
Yeah.
Really, and let the answers guide you.
The second you drive it out of the lot, you'll see another Mercedes that's better.
Absolutely.
20 minutes after driving it, you'll say, why are these potholes so bad? I just got such a nice car. Now I have these potholes. Now you've got suddenly another desire. Within 2 days, you'll have to fill up the petrol. And then you say, oh my God, look at the price of the petrols. And now you've got a fifth desire.
Yes.
Right? So that's how, in fact, these desires start piling up. And
yes, and even anger, for example, the depth. So then if somebody bumps your Mercedes, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, I'll let you continue right after this. Your desire for the perfect Mercedes was just interrupted. Anger is nothing but a desire interrupted.
Correct.
So yeah, so what you were saying.
As soon as you get a new car, pick up a stone and scratch the side. That's it. And then you're done, right? And at least you'll be able to identify your car and onwards. But what's so interesting is that when you start thinking about it, like one thing I took away from this is that, maybe 10 material things equals to one emotional connect with somebody, right? Maybe 10 emotional connects up equals to one spiritual thing. It's almost like that kind of a structure. And if you're stuck in the physical stuff, you need that many more things to desire. Now, as soon as you move towards, like you were saying, relationships, people, you need far lesser. Then when you move to something else, you need far lesser. Everyone has the same amount of joy and happiness,
Yes.
but the amount that you're trying to own is far lesser, because now you've moved towards spiritual path or towards something else, and you're constantly trying to remove.
Imagine when your denominator is one, when you have that one last desire which is to find yourself again. Imagine what your happiness quotient at that point will be.
Or complete frustration.
Why do you say frustration?
For finding yourself.
Oh, if you get stuck. Oh no. Okay. So there is an answer to everything. And this is why, I guess those sages did retreat to the Himalayas for so many years. So there is a beautiful story. And this is something that's purely in the realm of hypothesis, because for the simple reason that you can't stand outside, look at somebody and say, oh, he looks like he's at denominator one. We can, the rule I will always urge each of us to use is only apply to yourself. It's very easy for us to find this in our spouse, especially in our spouses or partners, in our kids.
Ala 0.5.
With, denominator 50,000. Always bring it back to yourself. Just think that this is your journey. This is your solitary journey in this world. So the story is that when you're down to like denominator one, and all you want is for this last desire to somehow, who's going to, there's no more steps on the ladder. You've reached the very top of the ladder. How are you going to, what else do I need to do? I don't know what to do. So there's an analogy which, again, many religions have used, which is of a branch and the moon. It looks like the branch is touching the moon, but actually there's Zameen Asman ka farak, right? It's so far away, and that's what that image signifies. And there it says, don't worry. It's like you're standing on one bank of a river and you're waiting to cross over to the other side. And so Krishna is actually philosophically just supreme consciousness, or the self. Okay, that's why dark blue, because it's unknown, it's deep, it's fathomless. So Krishna will cross over and take you over. Will hold your hand.
Nice.
So the actual roots of meditation from 5,000 years ago was not really for us to get worldly peace and take a nice retreat in a nice sylvan surrounding.
Hmm.
It really was to sublimate that last desire. That last desire cannot have a higher, neither can you grind it or crush it or anything like that. You can only sublimate it. So like camphor, why we burn camphor, it's to show that, you know what, through fire, through knowledge, through meditation, you can sublimate or simply dissolve that final desire. So, but not something we need to be worried about right at
now.
this moment. Know that the path exists and
Time
maybe
here. There's enough time.
What time? and
To get strong enough climbing this ladder right to the top.
Yeah, according to some philosophy, several lifetimes. That's why at least now we're not a tiger, we are or a frog. We have reached this. This is a form that can help us, and so philosophically the belief is that we human beings, and this somewhat borne out by neuroscience as well, that we're the only ones who have the power of discretion to this degree, right? So therefore we can transcend desires, we can make choices that take us to a lower denominator or to take us to a denominator 0, and that's entirely in our hands with our choice making ability.
Correct. Absolutely. Such a powerful thought. And when we were talking about this whole thing about lifetimes, and an accumulation is nothing but a lifetime that you're creating. We pass through so many lifetimes within this birth that we have.
Yes.
We don't recognize it, but we're constantly moving from one life to another. The life that you had as a student is not the life that you had as a college kid, is not the life that you had as a mother.
Absolutely.
And it keeps changing. And instead of thinking about in my next life I will be like this, why not at least focus on this one and saying in my coming life right now that's going to happen within a few years, next life stage, what is that life going to be like? And all the stuff that I'm carrying with me from my past, is it going to be useful in that life or not? Correct?
Absolutely.
Like you think about the Egyptian pharaohs, we think about the Egyptian pharaohs with them taking their servants and their chariots and their dogs along with them. The next life doesn't need any of that.
Yeah.
Correct? So similarly, your next avatar in this birth of yours, does it need the stuff that you're carrying or does it not need the stuff that you're carrying? And in a sense, it boils down to this thing about what is it that you're taking along with you.
Completely. This is in fact the great misunderstanding of the concept of karma. A lot of us misunderstand it as like fate, that everything that we've done so far is now going to determine our future. The fault is in our stars and all that. But actually, karma is simply all of the events of the past that have brought you to this moment in time.
Correct.
And to that extent, it's unchanging that we know of, right? Unless we're able to
time machine.
Time and which I'm quite hopeful for and quite excited about.
I'm going to take aluminum foil back and sell it there. So aluminum was more valuable than gold, right? So and then get gold back. So that's my plan when we get a time machine.
Oh God. For me, it would be vintage fashion.
What happened to your capsule wardrobe?
So I will keep it very minimalist for sure. I'll just maybe reference a Marie Antoinette from here and a queen from there, and keep it very minimal.
Very minimal.
No. So everything that's brought us to this point, right? But from here on, every choice, again, it comes down to choice. Two things, choice and action. Action is the only thing that will move us forward. Without action, without movement, everything on the planet, everything in nature deteriorates, right? So it's not an option for us to stand still. It is not an option for us to stagnate.
Correct.
Every element on known in this universe has got a half-life. There is a time after which it will become half of what it was, right? We all deteriorate, we see that. So we need to keep moving forward. But in the moving forward, we do it consciously with making choices. And every choice that we make is adding to our karma, adding or subtracting, let me say, from our karma account. Okay, like it's like saying that I smoked for 20 years. All right. Today, I make the decision to stop. Now, I hear this with a lot of people, including some of my clients, saying that, I smoked for 20 years. My aunt, she smoked for 50 years, but still she lived to 72. Confirmation bias. Now, that was a one-off chance, right? The fact is that if I choose to stop smoking today, two things are going to happen. One is, from this moment on, every choice that I make will go towards making my future life more healthy. Yes, I cannot change any impacts of the past, in that, yes, if cancer had already started forming or whatever it is, I might not be able to stop it. But the second part is, I can mitigate the impacts of the past. And now we see that even stopping smoking for 2 weeks already reverses so many of the impacts of the past. Simple example, and you'll see that again. I'm not asking for you to take this as a law or as a holy truth. It's really something that is so easy to verify in your life. Think about unhelpful thought patterns, right? Like you're sitting and obsessing about your ex. You stop at this minute and you say, you know what, from now on, I'm going to make a choice to only think thoughts that are going to be helpful for my future. Okay? You're already not having these hormones of regret, anger, resentment, loss coursing through your body.
Correct.
But also by making these choices, you're also giving yourself clarity on all the things that happened in the past. The whole past was sort of shrouded in this veil of anger and of self-righteousness. When that vapor sort of evaporates, because your focus is now so much clearer, you're suddenly going to take responsibility as well. Hey, maybe I had a role to play. If nothing else, one truth, just consider yourself that the buck always stops with you. Even if it's a choice that you feel choiceless to stay in a relationship, that is still a choice that you're making, right?
Yes. You always have a choice.
You always have a choice, and no prison, no nothing can hold you back, because the same two people who've been in prison can have such completely different experiences.
Absolutely.
So clearly the bars or the bars not lie in the prison bars, but the bars lie in
your head.
In your head. So once this happens, you'll be able to see with clarity what the toxicity in that relationship was, which will then take you closer to healing, which will then perhaps even give you a conversation with that person to be able to reach whatever point that you need to reach, in order for you to move forward, in order for that person to move forward. So it does have double impact, not to mention that, you will start facing so much. I mean, it's a choice that you make to say, am I going to keep suffering like this? Suffering is not our essential nature, never meant to suffer. It's only because we want, then we only say we don't want, then we say no, but I wanted this, but I didn't want it like this. All of this is just drama we create in our own heads.
Absolutely.
We don't want,
whoosh,
we will get. We'll get and we'll enjoy, and our happiness is not dependent on that. That's the important thing.
I love this conversation because, in a sense, it boils down to this one part. While we started off by talking about material aspects, and we started talking about thinking about tidying up your room, your drawer, whatever it is, that's one part of it. But there's an element called tidying up your life, right? Tidying up your life involves obviously all the material things, but also all the relationships that are not working for you, right? Tidying up your life also involves all the thoughts that are not working for you. All the things that were left in the past need to be left in the past and not carried with you on this journey forward. So, I love the way that you explained all this in terms of the number of lives that we have and the number of things we accumulate, and how change is just going to be part of it. So if you can start tidying up your life, letting go of one or two things, a week, a day, however it is, you will see suddenly your happiness level grow, because very soon you will start saying that the number of desires I have are lesser and lesser and lesser. And using your beautiful desire equation, you come to the point where you're saying that, is there anything left that I want? No. And then when things come to your life, those things will be infinitely more happy because you didn't expect them.
Yeah.
And that's how this beautiful journey goes. I absolutely love it. Did I summarize that well?
Spot on. Full marks.
Full marks. Woohoo!
100 on 100.
Damn it! मुझे 100 on 0 चाहिए. Where's my 100 on 0?
Actually, that's true, because it really is, I mean, there is no comparison to that. It's something that's come uniquely from you. So 100 on 0 for you.
100 on 0. Got it. Thank you so much, Sandhya. Sandhya, where can people find you? How should people connect with you?
Sure. My website is www.dynamicliving.co. My YouTube channel goes by my name, Sandhya Krishnan. So I think if you just Google it, you should be able to find it. I'm on social media. So yes, I would love to help. Thank you so much, Ashdin, for having me on here. It's always a delight talking to you.
My pleasure. I love our conversations. They're always like this, so interesting. I come back with 35 new things to think about.
Likewise. So you know, I mean, I think we're friends who enrich each other's lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit subscribe and like this video and share it with people who you think, are just holding on to too much stuff and they need to tidy up their lives. Thank you so much. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach.